Who here has a love-hate relationship with cutting mats? If you're like me, you probably love them when they do their job, holding things in place and releasing them when you're ready to pull the material off. But let's be honest, how often do the stars align and that actually happens? Most of the time, we're either fighting a mat that's too sticky, causing the material to tear and sticker backings being peeled off, or it's lost its grip and we're either trying to tape to hold the material in place or scrubbing them with the hope that some of the stickiness might return. What if I told you that one of the capitalist powers that be actually listened to our rants and came up with a solution? So you'll never have to use a sticky mat ever again if you don't want to. Meet the Xtool's new electrostatic mat for the M1 Ultra. Now, I mentioned in my review on the device that I find this accessory to be a game changer, and I stand by that statement. Instead of using adhesive, when activated, the mat generates a small electric charge that causes the material laying on it, the top of it, to adhere to the soft plastic surface. Remember when you were a kid and used to rub a balloon to generate a charge that would make your hair kind of cling to it? It's the exact same science. The mat retails for about $99 and includes 3 soft plastic mats. That way you can replace the mat if it gets cut up and worn. But honestly, if you dial in your settings, I feel like these are going to last quite a while. Installing the mat is actually really easy. First, I'll remove the sticky mat. Then you unscrew 2 screws in the bottom corners and set them aside. Then you'll place the mat in the machine, which lines up to a number of small notches on the floor. Then replace the 2 screws and tighten. At the bottom, there's a small power plug that plugs into the small power slot that's also used by the rotary attachment. Make sure you plug it in arrow side up. You should hear a beep and the light on the mat will come on. If the machine is connected to software already, the light will turn on and turn white to let you know that the Creative Space software has detected the mat. The software will actually turn the mat off when it's done with its cutting job so that you can remove your material easily. Once you've done that, simply place one of the 3 plastic mats into the square working area. These fit pretty dead on and don't really move, which will be really helpful later to creating a jig for lining up my full page stickers. The first time you install the machine, the electrostatic mat is going to prompt you to calibrate it. You can also always recalibrate by picking the calibration option in the settings next to the machine name in the upper right corner. Calibration just involves a series of short lines on a piece of printer paper. When it's done, you find the first line that's disappeared. Basically, I think it's detecting the 0 pressure mark for the mat since it's got some padding. I recommend doing this each time you change the pad because there's always going to be some variation between items even if they are the same material. Once calibrated, I'm going to load a piece of vinyl sticker paper that's got a layer of self-adhesive laminate on it. Using the material test array, I will find the right pressure and speed needed for both kiss cut and die cut stickers. I've found that you definitely need more pressure than what I used on the sticky mat, which makes sense since the electrostatic mat surface is softer. I recommend doubling your settings you use on the sticky mat as a starting point. Once I find these, I can click the matching butterfly, which will show the settings on the right, and I can save them to my user preferences. I will leave a link in the description on how to create a material test array. I did a video on it recently if you're not sure how to do this. One final thing I'm going to do is create a jig so that I can perfectly position my stickers on this mat. Now, because the electrostatic mat is not going anywhere, unlike the sticky one, I can create a jig that can be used over and over again. I can create one for the sticky mat using a piece of paper, but that requires you not moving the mat, and that makes it a little bit difficult to get things off the sticker mat. This mat, on the other hand, is non-sticky. So rather than having to cut a jig out using paper, I can actually just mark one using a pen. First, I'll load the pen in the machine. I'm just going to use the 0.4mm black pen that Xtool sent in the bundle. It's easy to swap out, and supposedly you can use your own pens as well, but I have not played around with that setting yet. Next, I'll go over to the software and select pen mode. Then I'll draw an 8.5 by 11 inch rectangle, which is a letter sheet size of paper. You can substitute the A4 size paper here and it will work just fine. I'm actually going to expand the rectangle ever so slightly, about 0.5 millimeter, just so that I can accommodate the pen thickness, and that way I can see the lines when I lay the paper down. I'll also trim the pressure of the pen up to make sure that I get a good line, and then send it to process. Less than 20 seconds later, I have a jig. I don't think the ink's going to be permanent, but it's easy enough to remark, or I may try an acrylic pen later to make a more permanent mark on the mat. Now that we've got everything set up, it's time to give this a try. Back in the window with the jig template, I'm going to set the output to off and lock the rectangle in layers so that it can't be moved. I'll then load my cut file and have the software trace it. I'll delete the image since I no longer need it, and then group all of the cut lines into a compound vector. Mostly this is just to keep things organized. Then I'll center the lines on my mat to make sure they're in the right spot. So let's load the sticker sheet onto the mat. Setting it within the marked lines, I make sure everything's lined up, and then a quick touch of the button tells me that the paper is secure. It's kind of cool to watch the little corners suddenly be magnetized to the edge. I'll smooth it just to make sure everything's nice and secure. Now let's cut some stickers. And just like that, perfectly cut stickers without the stress of a sticky mat. Needless to say, this is my favorite accessory. It makes cutting the process so much easier and less of a hassle than trying to get the stickers off of a sticky mat. No more lost sticker backings, I'm so excited. A couple of notes when using the mat. I have found depending on the speed you're cutting, you might want to put a bit more space between your stickers. Otherwise, sometimes depending on the speed of your cut, some of the paper might pull up because the paper is being held in place by an electric charge rather than an adhesive, so the bonding isn't quite as sturdy, but still more than sufficient. Also, if you have really curly paper, you may need to use a little bit of masking tape just to secure the paper and help the mat hold it in place. I don't really have that problem with my printable sticker vinyl paper or other forms of paper, but I could see that potentially being an issue if I'm going to cut something like my heat transfer vinyl. That stuff wants to hold the curl of the roll like it's its job. You could always, if you need to, remove the electrostatic mat and just use a sticky mat in that situation, but honestly, I feel like it's just quicker to throw down a few pieces of masking tape to help secure it. That's all I have on the new electrostatic mat from Xtool. I really think it's one of the coolest accessories that's come out. It's kind of a novel concept in the cutting machine world, and they've done a really good job with implementation. Next week, I'm going to show you guys another accessory that Xtool has released, and that's their hot foil tip, and I will be using the electrostatic mat for that one as well. I hope this content was helpful. If you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to get notified when I drop new content. See you guys next time. Bye.